The show Andor keeps using this motif about a tightening fist to explain the relationship between the Empire and its people, particularly the rebels. Now, this is an incredibly interesting motif because it's not just something that gets repeated symbolically throughout the show, but actually alludes to one of the central points of the show, making it a very solid motif. This concept goes back to the original trilogy of Star Wars, in which Leia tells Tarkin that the more he tightens his grip, the more rebels are going to slip through his fingers. And this is basically what we see happening in Andor, but to a much bigger degree. In the context of the Empire, the reason their commanders keep talking about tightening their grip is to talk about their plans to crack down on unlawful activity and rebels and anyone who basically opposes the Empire. And their plan to do that after the heist that Andor was a part of was to basically crack down on everyone, to make their authoritative rule even more intense. And they believe that taking this approach is going to help not only discourage rebel activity or people who want to become rebels or fight the Empire in some other ways, but it will also help them find the pockets of rebels and crack down on them and arrest them and kill them and whatever. But on the side of the rebellion is more about them losing their grip by tightening too hard, similar to what Princess Leia was talking about. This primarily comes from the character Lucia, who is basically orchestrating a lot of the rebel pockets underground. He is someone who lives on Coruscant, who has a persona of an antiques dealer, but this is all kind of a ruse, and he's actually seeding money and resources to the rebels and hoping to get it jump-started. And he says plain and clear that a lot of the activities that he's doing in the show, including orchestrating the heist, is to get the Empire to overreact, to get them to tighten their fist even more so that people who've kind of been lulled slowly over time into accepting the Empire and accepting progressively more authoritative rules are going to suddenly wake up and be more willing to join the rebellion, be more willing to fight back against the Empire. It's basically using terrorism to get a reaction from the government that is so overhanded, so authoritarian, that the people who just want to live their life, want to survive day in and day out, they don't want to cause trouble, they don't want to be on the Empire's radar, to get those people to actually become active. And it's a very clever and interesting plan. Now, Mon Mothma is opposed to this. She is very much a humanitarian. She's obviously supportive of fighting the Empire, but she wants to do it in much more subtle ways. And Luthen knows that this won't work. That even at the cost of human suffering, they need to wake people up. They need to show just how authoritarian and awful the Empire is to get people to react. And so the heist itself didn't really do much on the grand scheme of things. The Empire has near limitless resources. However, it's a symbol. It's a symbol that the Empire can be defeated, and it also serves the dual purpose of getting the Empire to overreact, which Luthen does confirm was the whole point of the heist. And we see after the heist this very thing happen. We see both the fist of the Empire tightening, but we also see how this is causing more and more people to get to the point where they're not willing to take it. One of the ways we see this is in which the ISB, basically the secret police and the intelligence bureau of the Empire, is given full authority by Emperor Palpatine to basically do whatever they want to crack down on dissidents. And then along with that, a package of bills gets passed. And with these two things, we see the Empire crack down more and more and more. At the same time, we also see people kind of waking up to this and pushing back a little bit more on the Empire. Notably, Andor's adopted mom, who tells this just disturbing and sad story about how she was afraid to walk through the town square because that's where they hung her husband years ago. And now talking about that she is at the point, she's older, she wants to make sure her life has meaning. She's seen that it is possible to fight back against the Empire because of the heist, and that she's seeing how much more authoritative that they're getting, and she wants to find a way to fight back. And in this newfound courage and this newfound purpose, for the first time in years, she was able to walk through that town square as a renewed person. And ironically, she's telling this story to Andor, saying how these rebels, these people who did this heist, are heroes, with Andor not telling her that he was one of the people involved. Obviously, for him, it was more about money. It was a job. He doesn't really have a close alliance with the rebels, though what will likely happen throughout the show is he's going to become more and more a part of the rebellion and actually start to believe in their cause. But at the moment when he's talking to her, he doesn't mention that he was part of the heist. And as she's talking about how they're heroes, they're kind of at odds, because she doesn't know he was one of the people involved, and that he's planning to run away and get as far off the grid as possible, change his name, and live a new life now that he has all this money that he was able to get from the heist. So a bit of irony there, but that scene and some other scenes definitely show how people are starting to push back a little bit as a direct result of the Empire closing their fists, cracking down on people. And then a few scenes after this conversation, what seems like a pretty long time later, we're seeing Andor living this new life on this beach resort planet, and he gets arrested for something he didn't do. And then when he's in this kind of kangaroo court, gets charged with even more charges. And we see irony there as well, that he played a role in the heist, and therefore the Empire cracking down, and now he gets caught in the crosshairs of this effort by the Empire and actually gets arrested because of it. So there's a bit of irony there. He wanted to escape now that he had money, but obviously he gets immediately caught up in the consequences of his own actions. So we see in the show very clearly that this motif is not just something that gets repeated. It's not just a symbolic image. It's not just something like that, but it's actually alluding to and pointing to one of the main purposes of the show, which is these people in the background not only seeding the Rebel Alliance with resources, not only helping to orchestrate robberies and terrorist attacks, but also trying to get the Empire to react so that people will push back. That tightening fist getting too tight so that rebels and people slip through the fingers. That's why I think this motif is not just interesting, not just a good callback to the original trilogy, but actually a little bit more than that. It is something that is directly telling the audience the point of the show, which is the Rebel Alliance gets born because the Empire overreacts.